The champagne glasses clinked around me like delicate wind chimes, a sound that should have been elegant, but only reminded me how out of place I was. I stood behind the marble bar of the Belvedere Club, polishing crystal stemware until my reflection split into 1,000 fractured versions of myself, each one looking as exhausted as I felt. The scent of expensive cologne mixed with cigar smoke hung heavy in the air, a thick perfume of wealth I'd never known and probably never would. My feet ached in the mandatory black heels, my lower back screaming from 8 hours of standing, smiling, serving. The white shirt they made us wear was starched so stiff it scraped against my collarbone with every breath. I was invisible here, just another pair of hands to pour $1,000 bottles for men in custom suits who never looked at my face, until he walked in. I felt him before I saw him, a shift in the atmosphere, like the pressure drop before a storm. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they changed. Became quieter, more careful. The manager, Marcus, straightened his tie and smoothed his vest in one nervous gesture. My eyes lifted from the glass I was polishing, and that's when I saw him. He moved through the room like darkness personified, dressed in a black suit so perfectly tailored it seemed painted onto his broad shoulders. 2 men flanked him, not walking with him but around him, their eyes constantly scanning the room with the predatory alertness of wolves guarding their alpha. The man in the center was tall, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from granite. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, and eyes. God, those eyes. So dark they looked black in the low amber lighting. He didn't look at anyone directly, yet I felt certain he saw everything. They settled into the private booth in the corner, the one that cost more to reserve than I made in a month. Marcus himself hurried over with the bottle they always kept ready. I'd learned that much in my 3 weeks working here. Some clients were regulars, some were important, and some, like this man, were both. Emma. Marcus hissed at me, snapping his fingers. Table 7, now. My heart jumped. I'd never served the VIP section before. But I thought, Maria called in sick. You're up. Don't screw this up. His eyes were hard, worried. These men? Be professional. Be invisible. Don't speak unless spoken to. I grabbed a tray with trembling hands, loading it with the crystal tumblers and the imported vodka they'd requested. The bottle was cold and heavy, like holding a small fortune, which it probably was. My heels clicked against the polished floor as I approached their table, and I kept my eyes down, focusing on not spilling, not falling, not doing anything to draw attention. The air around their booth felt different, colder, charged with something dangerous. Gentlemen, I murmured, setting down the glasses with practiced precision. My hands were steady even though my pulse hammered in my throat. Your vodka. I began to pour, watching the clear liquid cascade into the first glass. The man to the left had a scar across his knuckles. The one on the right wore a gun. I could see the subtle bulge under his jacket. And the man in the center, I made the mistake of glancing up. His eyes met mine, and the world stopped. They were the darkest brown I'd ever seen, almost black, with an intensity that felt like being trapped in a spotlight. He didn't smile, didn't blink, just watched me with the focused attention of a predator deciding if something was prey or not worth his time. I looked away quickly, my cheeks burning, and finished pouring. Will there be anything else? My voice came out steadier than I felt. No. His voice was deep, quiet, but it carried a weight that made my spine straighten. Not American. The accent was subtle, but there. Eastern European, maybe Russian. I nodded and turned to leave, relief flooding through me. That's when I heard the voice that made my blood turn to ice. Emma? Emma fucking Rodriguez? No. No, no, no. I turned slowly, and there he was. Marcus, emerging from the hallway that led to the private dining rooms. But he wasn't alone. He was with him. Tyler. My ex-boyfriend stood there in an expensive suit I knew he couldn't afford, his arm around a blonde woman wearing more diamonds than I'd see in a lifetime. His face had that familiar smirk, the one that used to make me feel small. Holy shit, it is you, Tyler laughed, but it wasn't a kind sound. Wow. Serving drinks now? I heard you were struggling, but damn. The blonde woman giggled, pressing closer to him. Is this the one you told me about? The waitress? Bartender, actually, Tyler corrected, his eyes raking over me with cruel amusement. Well, barely. What happened, Emma? I thought you were going to make something of yourself. Nursing school, wasn't it? My face burned. The few other patrons had gone quiet, watching. I felt their stares like brands on my skin. I'm working, I said quietly, trying to maintain some dignity. Excuse me. Working, he repeated mockingly. Right. While I'm closing million-dollar deals, guess we both made our choices. I tried to walk past him, but he stepped into my path, close enough that I could smell the whiskey on his breath. You know what's funny? His voice dropped lower, mean. I always knew you'd end up like this. Too proud to ask for help. Too stubborn to admit when you're drowning. How's your mom doing, by the way? Still sick? That must be expensive. Something sharp twisted in my chest. He knew exactly where to cut. Move, I whispered. Or what? He leaned in, and I could see the malice in his eyes. You'll report me to your manager, please? My firm represents half the owners of this place. You think they'll choose you over me? Tyler, come on. The blonde tugged at his arm, looking uncomfortable. Let's just go. But he wasn't done. He never could resist twisting the knife. You'll pay for ignoring me, he said, his voice cold and sharp. For all those times you hung up on me, for blocking my number, for thinking you were too good for me when you're nothing but... That's enough. The voice came from behind me, quiet as a blade sliding from its sheath. I turned. The man in the black suit had stood. He wasn't particularly tall, maybe 6 feet, but he seemed to fill the entire room. His 2 guards had also risen, their hands moving inside their jackets. The temperature in the club dropped 10 degrees. This is a private conversation, Tyler said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. You were leaving. It wasn't a question. The man's dark eyes never left Tyler's face, and there was something in that gaze that made my ex-boyfriend go pale. Now. Marcus appeared from nowhere, his face sheet white. Mr. Volkov, I apologize for the disturbance. I'll have them removed immediately. Volkov. The name meant something. I could see it in the way everyone else had gone silent, the way Marcus was practically trembling. Tyler's girlfriend was already backing away, pulling at his sleeve. Tyler, we should go. But Tyler's pride wouldn't let him. Listen, I don't know who you think you... Volkov moved. Not fast, but with the certainty of someone who never worried about resistance. He closed the distance between them in 2 steps, and suddenly Tyler was against the wall, Volkov's hand around his throat, not choking him, just holding him there with casual, terrifying strength. You will apologize to the young woman, Volkov said quietly. Then you will leave, and you will never speak to her again. Do you understand? Tyler's face had gone from red to purple. He nodded frantically. Volkov released him. Tyler nearly collapsed, gasping, his girlfriend catching his arm. They stumbled toward the exit, Tyler throwing one last hateful glance over his shoulder, not at Volkov, but at me. The look promised retribution somehow. The door swung shut behind them. The silence that followed felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane. Volkov turned to me. Up close, I could see the faint scar that ran along his jawline, the slight gray at his temples. He was older than I'd first thought, maybe late 30s, and there was something in his face that spoke of violence witnessed and committed. Are you all right? He asked. My mouth was dry. Yes, thank you. You didn't have to... Yes, he interrupted softly. I did. His eyes searched my face, and I felt stripped bare under that gaze. What is your name? Emma. Emma Rodriguez. Emma. He repeated it slowly, like tasting wine. You will no longer work behind the bar tonight. Marcus. He didn't raise his voice, but the manager practically teleported to his side. Miss Rodriguez will serve my booth exclusively. Double her pay for tonight. Of course, Mr. Volkov. Right away. That's not necessary, I started to protest, but Volkov's eyes found mine again. It is. There was something in his voice, some current I couldn't read. You were harassed in your workplace. Consider it compensation. He returned to his booth, his guards following. Marcus gripped my elbow, his fingers tight enough to bruise. "Do you have any idea who that is?" he hissed in my ear. "Dmitry Volkov. He owns half this city, the half that matters anyway. Whatever he wants, you give him. Understand?" I nodded numbly. For the next 2 hours, I served Volkov and his associates. They spoke in low voices, sometimes in Russian, sometimes in English so accented I could barely understand. Business talk, numbers, names I didn't recognize. I kept the glasses full, removed the empty plates of food they barely touched, and tried to be invisible like Marcus had instructed, but I felt Volkov's eyes on me constantly. Not leering, nothing like Tyler's entitled gaze. This was different. Assessing. Curious. Like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. When the club finally began to close, Marcus handed me an envelope. Inside were bills. $100 bills, more than I made in 2 weeks. "Mr. Volkov's tip," Marcus said. His expression was worried. "Emma, be careful. Men like that. They don't do things without reason." I clutched the envelope, thinking of my mother's medical bills, the rent that was overdue, the nursing school dreams I'd had to put on hold. This money could buy me breathing room. It could buy me time. I was just doing my job, I said. "With men like Dmitry Volkov," Marcus replied quietly. "Nothing is ever that simple." I left through the back entrance, my coat wrapped tight against the November cold. The alley was dark, lit only by a single flickering streetlight. My old Honda was parked at the far end, and I hurried toward it, my breath clouding in the freezing air. I was fumbling for my keys when I heard the footsteps behind me. My heart stopped. I spun around, and there, emerging from the shadows near the club's entrance, was Tyler. His suit was rumpled, his tie loosened, and his eyes held a fury that made my stomach drop. "Did you think that was funny?" he snarled, advancing on me. "Embarrassing me like that? Getting your new boyfriend to threaten me?" "Tyler, go home. You're drunk. You'll pay for this, Emma. I told you that. You'll fucking pay." He was close now. Too close. And I could smell the alcohol coming off him in waves. I backed up against my car, my keys clutched like a weapon in my fist. "I'll make sure everyone knows what you really are," he continued, his voice rising. "A gold-digging little—" The black SUV appeared so silently, it seemed to materialize from nothing. It rolled to a stop between us, the door opening before it had fully halted. Volkov stepped out, and the 2 guards I'd seen earlier were suddenly there too, appearing from the shadows like ghosts. Tyler's face went white. "I thought we had an understanding," Volkov said, his voice carrying that same quiet menace from earlier. "You were to leave. You were never to speak to her again. I was just— Dmitry." I jerked in surprise. One of the guards had spoken, his tone urgent. He was holding a phone, showing the screen to Volkov. I couldn't see what it displayed, but Volkov's expression hardened into something that made my blood run cold. He looked at Tyler, then at me, then back at the phone. "Put him in the car," Volkov said quietly. The guards moved with practiced efficiency. Tyler didn't even have time to scream before they had him in the back of the SUV, the door closing with a decisive thunk. Then Volkov turned to me. "Miss Rodriguez," he said, "get in your car, lock the doors, drive straight home. Do not stop. Do you understand? What are you going to do to him?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Nothing he doesn't deserve." His eyes met mine, and in them I saw something ancient and merciless. "But that is not your concern. Go. Now." I should have argued, should have protested, but some primitive part of my brain recognized a predator when it saw one, and every instinct screamed at me to obey. I got in my car with shaking hands, started the engine, and drove. In my rearview mirror, I watched the black SUV pull away in the opposite direction, carrying Tyler into the darkness. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. What had I just witnessed? What had I just become part of? When I finally made it home to my tiny studio apartment, I locked the door, slid the deadbolt, and stood in the darkness trying to breathe. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. The message was simple. "You are safe now. Sleep well. DV." I stared at those words until my vision blurred. Safe. From what? From Tyler? Or from something far worse that I'd accidentally stumbled into? I didn't sleep that night. I sat by my window, watching the street below, waiting for... I didn't know what. The black SUV to return? Police? Tyler to appear, seeking revenge? But nothing came. Just the silence of a city sleeping, unaware that my entire world had shifted on its axis. And somewhere out there in the darkness, Dmitry Volkov was dealing with my ex-boyfriend in ways I didn't want to imagine. I touched the envelope of money still in my pocket and wondered what price I'd just agreed to pay. I didn't go to work the next day. I called Marcus at dawn, my voice hoarse from lack of sleep, and told him I had the flu. He didn't question it, just told me to feel better and hung up quickly, like he didn't want to be associated with me anymore. I couldn't blame him. After what happened last night, I was probably radioactive. I spent the morning pacing my studio apartment, a space so small I could touch both walls if I stretched my arms out. The November sunlight filtered through my single window, falling across the secondhand furniture and the stack of medical bills on my kitchen counter. Mom's bills. The reason I was working myself to exhaustion at the Belvedere Club instead of finishing nursing school. My phone sat on the coffee table like a grenade. I'd stared at it for hours, waiting for it to ring. Police, maybe. Asking questions about Tyler, or worse, Tyler himself, angry and looking for revenge. But the only message was the one from last night. That simple text from DV, "You are safe now." What did that mean? Safe from Tyler? And what had Volkov done to ensure it? I tried to distract myself with cleaning, scrubbing my already clean bathroom until my hands were raw. I attempted to study from my old nursing textbooks, but the words blurred together. Around noon, I finally gave in and searched for Tyler on social media. His accounts were still active, photos of him with the blonde from last night, both of them smiling at some charity gala. Posted 3 hours ago. So he was alive. That was something. But the caption made my blood run cold. Sometimes you have to know when to cut your losses. New chapter starting. Are moving forward. No regrets. It sounded like Tyler, but there was something off about it, something too careful, too measured. Tyler never used hashtags. And cut your losses? That phrase felt like a message, a warning wrapped in corporate speak. I was still staring at my phone when someone knocked on my door. My heart leaped into my throat. I froze, listening. 3 sharp raps, precise and demanding. "Miss Rodriguez." The voice was accented, unfamiliar. "I have a delivery." I crept to the door, looking through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, one of Volkov's guards from last night. The one with the scar across his knuckles. He was holding a large black box tied with a silver ribbon. Every instinct screamed at me not to open the door, but my hand was already moving, turning the deadbolt, pulling the door open a crack with the chain still attached. "I don't want any trouble," I said. The guard's expression didn't change. "No trouble. Mr. Volkov asked me to deliver this. He wants to ensure you are well." "I'm fine." "You can tell him thank you, but he would like you to have it." The guard set the box down in the hallway. "He will be disappointed if you refuse." Something in the way he said disappointed made it clear that disappointing Dmitry Volkov was not advisable. The guard turned and walked away, his footsteps silent on the worn carpet. I waited until he disappeared into the elevator before I retrieved the box, dragging it quickly inside and locking the door behind me. The box was heavy, expensive. The kind of packaging that cost more than my rent. I set it on my bed and stared at it for a full minute before my curiosity won. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a coat. Not just any coat, a long wool coat in deep charcoal gray, softer than anything I'd ever touched. Designer label, probably worth thousands, and underneath it, a note in sharp angular handwriting. "November is cold. You should dress warmer. A car will collect you at 7 p.m. tonight. Dinner. Don't refuse. DV." My hands shook as I held the note. This wasn't a request. The phrasing was polite, but the intention was clear. Dmitry Volkov wanted to see me, and men like him didn't accept no for an answer. I should have been terrified, should have been calling the police, getting a restraining order, moving to another city. Instead, I found myself pulling the coat from the box and trying it on. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. He'd known my size just from watching me serve drinks. The thought should have been creepy, but instead it sent a strange shiver down my spine. Awareness, attention, focus. When was the last time anyone had really seen me? I looked at myself in the mirror. In this coat, I didn't look like a struggling bartender drowning in debt. I looked like someone who mattered, someone worth noticing. God, I was in trouble. At 6:45 p.m., I stood in front of my closet trying to figure out what you wore to dinner with a man who probably had people killed. The coat was beautiful, but underneath it I had nothing appropriate. My work uniform? Too servile. My old jeans? Too casual. The single dress I owned for interviews? 5 years old and tight in all the wrong places now. I settled on black pants and a simple cream blouse, the nicest things I owned. I pulled my dark hair back into a low ponytail and applied the minimal makeup I could afford. In the mirror, I looked tired, young, out of my depth. Perfect. At exactly 7 p.m., my phone buzzed. Car is outside. DV. I grabbed the coat. Already I was thinking of it as mine and headed downstairs. My building was in a neighborhood that was trying to gentrify but hadn't quite made it yet. Graffiti covered the walls, the streetlights flickered, and most of my neighbors supplemented their income in ways they didn't report to the IRS. The black SUV waiting at the curb looked like it had been teleported from another dimension. The same scarred guard from earlier opened the door for me. Miss Rodriguez. I climbed in, my pulse hammering. The interior smelled like leather and something else, expensive cologne. The same scent I'd noticed on Volkov last night. He wasn't in the car, and I exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. We drove in silence through the city. I watched the neighborhoods change outside the tinted windows, from my struggling area to the industrial district, then gradually into the part of town where the real money lived. Historic brownstones, tree-lined streets, restaurants that didn't list prices on their menus. The SUV pulled up to a building I'd walked past 100 times but never entered. Alina's. A Russian restaurant so exclusive you needed reservations months in advance, and connections most people didn't have. The guard opened my door. Mr. Volkov is waiting inside. The restaurant's interior was all dark wood and dim amber lighting, with white tablecloths and crystal that caught the candlelight like trapped stars. A woman in an elegant black dress approached immediately. Miss Rodriguez? This way, please. She led me through the main dining room, half empty despite the exclusivity, probably because most people couldn't afford to eat here, and toward a private room in the back. My heels clicked on the hardwood floor, too loud, announcing my presence like a warning bell. She opened a door, and there he was. Dmitry Volkov stood by a window overlooking the street, a glass of something amber in his hand. He'd shed the jacket from last night, wearing just black slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. It should have made him look casual, relaxed. Instead, it only emphasized the coiled power in his frame, the broad shoulders, the muscled forearms marked with scars I could see even from across the room. He turned when I entered, and those dark eyes found mine immediately. Emma. My name and his accent sounded like something foreign and beautiful. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? The words came out before I could stop them. A slight smile touched his lips, the first I'd seen from him. It didn't make him look friendlier. If anything, it made him look more dangerous. Everyone has choices, he said quietly. Some are simply easier than others. Please, sit. The table was set for two, with enough silverware that I wasn't sure which pieces to use. Volkov moved to pull out my chair, a gesture so old-fashioned it startled me. I sat, and he took the seat across from me, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. The coat fits well, he observed. You shouldn't have sent it. I can't accept. You already have. He lifted his glass, took a slow sip. Do you like wine, Emma, or would you prefer something else? I don't understand what this is. I gripped the edge of the table, needing something solid to anchor me. Last night you helped me. I'm grateful. But this... I gestured around the private room, at the expensive setting, at him. I don't know what you want from me. Volkov set down his glass with deliberate care. What do you think I want? Heat flooded my cheeks. I don't do that. Do what? His voice was soft, curious. Whatever arrangement you're proposing. I don't need a... The words tangled in my throat. How did you politely tell a man who probably killed people that you weren't interested in being his mistress? I am not proposing an arrangement, Volkov said, and something in his tone made me look up. I am having dinner with a woman I find interesting. That is all. You don't even know me. No, he agreed, but I would like to, if you permit it. The waiter appeared before I could respond, setting down plates of food I hadn't ordered. Blini with caviar, borscht that steamed fragrant and rich, pelmeni drowning in butter, the kind of meal that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. We ate in silence for a few minutes. The food was incredible, but I could barely taste it. I was too aware of Volkov watching me, studying me with that focused intensity that made me feel stripped bare. Your ex-boyfriend, he said finally. Tyler. How long were you together? I set down my fork. 2 years. We broke up 6 months ago. Why? Does it matter? Everything matters. Volkov leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving my face. Tell me. Maybe it was the wine the waiter had poured without asking. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was because sitting across from this dangerous man was easier than sitting alone in my apartment drowning in bills and broken dreams. My mom got sick, I heard myself say. Cancer. Stage 3. I had to leave nursing school to take care of her, to work enough to cover her treatment. Tyler said he understood at first. But then it became clear I wasn't going to be the successful nurse practitioner he'd planned to show off. I was just stuck. Poor. A burden. So he left. Found someone whose life was going in the right direction. Volkov's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. And last night? What was that about? He wanted to rub my face in his success. Make sure I knew I'd made the wrong choice. The bitterness in my voice surprised me. That's who Tyler is. He has to win, even after it's over. He will not bother you again. The certainty in Volkov's voice made my stomach clench. What did you do to him? I had a conversation with him, made certain things clear. He has decided to relocate to Seattle for work. His transfer became available quite suddenly. Volkov's smile was thin, sharp. Opportunities like that don't come often. He was wise to take it. Seattle. Across the country. Far enough that Tyler couldn't casually show up to torment me, but close enough that he could rebuild his life. You didn't hurt him, I said, needing to hear it. I don't hurt people without cause, Emma. I simply reminded him of the consequences of his actions. Tyler is a weak man who preys on those he perceives as powerless. Men like that understand only one language. Volkov leaned forward, and suddenly the distance between us felt like nothing at all. You are no longer powerless, do you understand? You are under my protection now. I didn't ask for that. No. But you have it regardless. The weight of those words settled over me like the coat upstairs, warm, encompassing, impossible to shrug off. Why? I whispered. Why would you do this for a stranger? Volkov was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than I'd heard it once, long ago. She had your eyes, same color, same expression, like she was carrying the weight of the world and refusing to set it down. His jaw tightened. She did not survive her stubbornness. I learned too late that sometimes pride is more dangerous than any enemy. What happened to her? She died because I was not there to protect her. The words were simple, but the pain underneath them was anything but. I will not make that mistake again. The air between us felt charged, heavy with something I didn't have a name for. This wasn't attraction, or not just attraction. This was something darker, more complex. Obsession, maybe, or recognition. Like we were two broken pieces that happened to fit. I should go, I said, even though I didn't move. Yes, Volkov agreed. You should. But you won't. Not yet. He was right. God help me, he was right. We talked for another hour. He asked me about my mother, about nursing school, about the dreams I'd put on hold. I found myself telling him things I'd never told anyone. How scared I was, how tired, how sometimes I lay awake at night wondering if this was all there was to my life. Struggling, surviving, never quite drowning but never swimming either. Volkov listened with absolute attention, like my words were the only thing that existed in his world, and when I finally ran out of things to say, he told me his own story, or pieces of it, fragments that formed an incomplete picture. He'd come to America 15 years ago with nothing, built an empire from blood and violence and ruthless business sense, lost people along the way, made enemies, made worse choices. And now he sat at the top of a world he'd conquered, surrounded by money and power and fear. And he was so fucking lonely he'd invited a broke bartender to dinner just to hear her voice. He didn't say that last part, but I heard it anyway, in the spaces between his words. When he finally drove me home, this time sitting beside me in the SUV, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body, he walked me to my building's entrance. "Your mother," he said as I fumbled for my keys. "What is her name?" Teresa Rodriguez." "Why?" "The treatment she needs. The bills. They will be taken care of." I froze. "What? No, I can't accept that. That's too much." "It is already done." Volkov's hand came up, his fingers gentle as they tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You will not refuse this, Emma. Your mother will have the best care available. You will return to nursing school, and you will stop working yourself to death for men who do not deserve your service." "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why would you do this?" His thumb brushed across my cheek, a touch so light it could have been imagined. "Because I can. Because I want to. Because watching you suffer when I have the power to stop it is intolerable to me." "You don't know me," I said again, desperate. "I will." It sounded like a promise, or a threat. "Good night, Emma. Sleep well. You are safe now." He turned and walked back to the SUV, leaving me standing in the cold with my heart racing and my mind spinning. I went upstairs and locked myself in, then immediately pulled out my phone. It took 15 minutes of searching, but I found what I was looking for: articles about Dmitry Volkov. Not many, he kept a low profile, but enough. Russian émigré, suspected organized crime ties, multiple businesses that were probably fronts for money laundering, federal investigations that went nowhere because witnesses disappeared or refused to testify, and underneath it all, whispers of violence, of bodies, of a man who'd built his kingdom on blood and had never stopped defending it. I should have been terrified. Instead, I touched my cheek where his thumb had brushed and wondered what I'd just become part of. My phone buzzed. Another message from DV. "Tomorrow night, same time. I'll send the car." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I typed back, "Okay." The moment I hit send, I knew I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. 3 weeks passed like a fever dream. Dmitry, he'd insisted I call him that after the 5th dinner, sent the car every night. Sometimes we ate at Alina's, sometimes at other restaurants I'd never heard of. Places without signs where everyone knew his name and feared it. We talked about everything and nothing. He asked about my childhood in Arizona, about the father who'd left when I was 6, about the books I loved, and the music that made me cry. And I learned about him too, in fragments. How he'd grown up in Moscow in the chaos after the Soviet Union fell. How he'd watched his father beaten to death over a debt of 200 rubles. How he'd clawed his way out of poverty through violence and cunning, building something that could never be taken from him. "Control," he told me one night over Georgian wine. "That is all that matters. Control over your fate, your future, your fears. Everything else is surrender." I should have been afraid of him. The rational part of my brain screamed warnings every time I got in that SUV, but Dmitry never touched me beyond that one brush of his thumb. Never made demands. He simply existed in my life with the gravitational pull of a black hole, reshaping everything around him. Mom's medical bills vanished overnight. The hospital called to say an anonymous donor had paid everything in full and established a trust for future treatment. She was moved to a private room, assigned the best oncologist in the state, given medications I couldn't pronounce, but that made her smile return for the first time in months. "Someone's looking out for you, Miha," she said when I visited, her hand thin and warm in mine. "An angel, maybe. I didn't tell her about Dimitri. How could I explain that my angel wore black suits and had men who killed on his orders? Marcus called me into his office at the Belvedere Club after my third missed shift. "You're done," he said, not unkindly. "Mr. Volkov sent word. You don't work here anymore. He can do whatever he wants, Emma. And he wants you to go back to school." Marcus slid an envelope across the desk. "Severance, 3 months' pay, and a recommendation letter for any program you apply to." I stared at the envelope, anger and gratitude warring in my chest. Dimitri was dismantling my life and rebuilding it according to his design. I should have resented it, should have fought back. Instead, I enrolled in nursing school for the spring semester. "Good," Dimitri said when I told him over dinner. His hand covered mine on the table, the first real touch in weeks, and heat raced up my arm. "You are meant for better things than serving drinks to men who don't see you." "You saw me," I said quietly. His eyes darkened. "Yes, I did. From the moment you walked to my table, I saw you. And I have not stopped seeing you since." The air between us thickened. The private room suddenly felt too small, too warm. Dimitri's thumb traced circles on my palm, a touch that should have been innocent, but felt like lightning. "Emma." My name was rough in his throat. "There is something you should know." "What?" "I am not a good man. The things I have done, the world I live in, it is not safe. Not clean. Being near me puts you at risk." "Then why am I here?" His grip tightened. "Because I am also a selfish man, and having you in my life has become necessary to me. But you should understand what that means." Before I could respond, the door burst open. One of Dimitri's guards, Victor, I'd learned his name, stood in the doorway, his face grim. "We have a problem." Dimitri's expression went cold, all the warmth draining from his eyes in an instant. He stood, releasing my hand. "What kind of problem?" "Sergei's nephew. He's here, demanding to speak with you." Something flickered across Dimitri's face. Anger, yes, but also calculation. "Where?" "Main dining room. He brought 4 men. Armed." My heart stopped. "Armed. Dimitri, stay here." His voice was steel. "Victor will remain with you. Do not leave this room. Do you understand?" I nodded, throat tight. Dimitri leaned down, his lips brushing my forehead, the most intimate touch we'd shared. "Nothing will happen to you. I promise." Then he was gone, moving with that deadly grace toward whatever confrontation waited in the other room. Victor positioned himself by the door, his hand inside his jacket where I knew his gun rested. I sat frozen in my chair, listening to the muffled sounds from beyond the wall. Raised voices, Dimitri's low, controlled tone cutting through the noise, then a crash. Shouting. A sound that might have been a gunshot. I jerked to my feet. "What's happening?" "Sit down, Miss Rodriguez." Victor's voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. "Boss has it handled." Minutes crawled by like hours. My hands shook as I gripped the edge of the table. This was the reality of Dimitri's world, violence simmering beneath every surface, always one wrong word away from explosion. Finally, the door opened. Dimitri walked in, and my breath caught. Blood stained his white shirt. Not a lot, just a spray across his shoulder and collar. His knuckles were split, bruised, but his expression was calm, almost serene. "It's handled," he said simply. "You're bleeding. Not my blood." He glanced down at the stains like they were inconsequential. Sergei's nephew was unhappy with a business decision. He expressed his concerns poorly. "We came to an understanding." "An understanding," I repeated weakly. Dimitri crossed to me, tilting my face up with those bloodied hands. "This is who I am, Emma. This is the world you are entering if you stay. Violence. Blood. Consequences for disrespect. I can give you everything. Safety. Comfort, security. But I cannot give you innocence. That price was paid long ago. I should have run. Should have demanded Victor drive me home and never looked back. Instead, I reached up and touched Dimitri's bruised knuckles, my fingers gentle on his damaged skin. "Let me clean this," I whispered. Something blazed in his eyes. "Emma, show me." He led me through the now empty restaurant. I didn't look at whatever had been cleaned up from the confrontation, and up a private staircase to an apartment above Alina's. I hadn't known he lived here, but of course he did. Multiple properties, Marcus had said. Always moving, always protected. The apartment was masculine and sparse, expensive furniture but minimal, like a hotel room for someone who never fully unpacked. Dmitri sat on a leather couch while I found the first aid kit in his bathroom, stocked better than most hospital supply closets. I cleaned the blood from his hands in silence, my nursing training taking over. The split knuckles weren't deep, but they'd bruised badly. His skin was warm under my fingers, scarred and rough. Hands that had built an empire and destroyed anyone who threatened it. You should be afraid of me, Dmitri said quietly. I know. But you're not. I met his eyes. No. I should be, but I'm not. Why? How could I explain it? That somehow, in this man who terrified everyone else, I felt safer than I had in years. That his protection felt like coming home to something I hadn't known I was missing. Because you see me, I said finally. Really see me. Not what I could be or should be, just me, and I see you too. The violence, the darkness, all of it. And it doesn't scare me the way it should. Dimitri's hand came up, cupping my face with a tenderness that contradicted everything he was. You are dangerous to me, Emma Rodriguez. More dangerous than any enemy I have faced. Why? Because you make me want things I cannot have. A normal life. A woman who looks at me without fear. A future that is not built on blood. His thumb traced my lower lip. And I am too selfish to let you go. The distance between us evaporated. I didn't know who moved first, maybe both of us. But suddenly his mouth was on mine. And the world caught fire. The kiss was nothing like I expected. Not rough or demanding, but slow, deliberate. Like he was memorizing the taste of me. His hand slid into my hair, cradling my head with a gentleness that made my chest ache. I gripped his shoulders, feeling the muscles coiled beneath his ruined shirt, and kissed him back with 3 weeks of tension and longing. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dmitri rested his forehead against mine. You should leave, he said roughly. Before I do something we cannot undo. What if I don't want to leave, Emma? My name was a warning and a prayer. If you stay, everything changes. You become mine. And I do not share. I do not let go. Once you are mine completely. Do you understand what I'm saying? I should have been frightened by the possession in his voice, the absolute certainty. But all I felt was a dark thrill racing down my spine. I understand, I whispered. Dmitri kissed me again, harder this time, like he was claiming something that had always belonged to him. And maybe I had. From that first moment our eyes met across the Belvedere Club, maybe I'd been his. We didn't sleep together that night. Despite the heat between us, Dmitri pulled back, his control iron. Not yet, he said, his voice ragged. Not until you are certain. Not until you understand fully what this means. He had Victor drive me home in the early hours of morning, but everything had shifted. The air felt different. I felt different. Like I'd stepped through a door and found myself in another life entirely. Over the next week, I learned what it meant to be under Dmitri Volkov's protection and his obsession. Men appeared outside my apartment building. Guards, watching. When I went to visit my mother, a different SUV followed at a discreet distance. My phone rang one afternoon, and a calm voice informed me that a credit card had been issued in my name, for expenses. The limit made my head spin. I don't need your money, I told Dmitri that night. I know, but you have it regardless. Buy what you want. Go where you want. Just tell Victor where you're going so I don't worry. This is crazy. You're treating me like you are precious to me, because you are. His eyes were dark, intense. The world is dangerous, Emma. I have enemies. And now that they know you matter to me, you have enemies too. I will not apologize for keeping you safe. The possessiveness should have smothered me. Instead, it felt like being wrapped in armor. But with protection came complications. One night, Dmitri took me to a charity gala, the kind of event where politicians and criminals mingled under crystal chandeliers, everyone pretending they didn't know exactly who was who. I wore a dress Dmitri had sent. Midnight blue silk, that probably cost more than a semester of nursing school. His hand never left my waist as we moved through the crowd, and I felt the stares following us. Curiosity, speculation, jealousy. "Who is she?" I heard a woman whisper. "Volkov's new pet," someone else replied. "Poor thing, she won't last long." Dimitri's grip tightened on my waist. He'd heard them too. We were standing by the bar when a woman approached. She was beautiful. Perfect blonde hair, designer everything, confidence that came from never being told no. "Dimitri." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's been a while." "Katya." His voice was polite but cold. "I didn't know you were in town. Just flew in." Her gaze slid to me, assessing and dismissive in the same glance. "And who is this?" "Emma Rodriguez," I said before Dimitri could answer. "Nice to meet you." Katya's smile sharpened. "Ah, the bartender. I've heard about you." The way she said bartender made it sound like something shameful. Dimitri went very still beside me. "Katya was just leaving," he said quietly. "But she wasn't done. I just find it curious, that's all. You always had such refined taste, Dimitri. And now..." She waved a manicured hand at me. "Well, to each his own, I suppose. Though I wonder how long the novelty will last." The words hit like slaps. I felt my face burn, all the old insecurities rising. I was out of place here, and everyone knew it. Dimitri moved faster than I'd ever seen him. One moment he was beside me, the next he had Katya by the arm. His grip just tight enough to make her wince. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying the weight of absolute menace. "Emma is under my protection. Any insult to her is an insult to me, and you know how I handle insults, don't you, Katya?" The color drained from her face. "Dimitri, I didn't mean..." "Yes, you did." He released her with a slight push. "Leave. Now. And consider carefully whether you want to remain in this city." Katya fled, and several people who'd been watching quickly found other places to be. Dimitri turned back to me, his expression softening. "Are you all right?" "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He pulled me closer, his lips brushing my temple. "You are mine, Emma. Mine to protect. Mine to defend. Anyone who does not show you respect will answer to me. Do you understand?" I nodded against his chest, overwhelmed by the fierce protectiveness in his voice. "Good. Come, we're leaving. I've had enough of these vultures." As we walked out, I caught sight of our reflection in the tall windows. Dimitri in his black suit, dark and dangerous. Me in blue silk, looking like I'd wandered into someone else's life. Maybe I had. But as Dimitri's hand tightened on mine, possessive and certain, I realized I didn't want to wander back. 2 months into whatever this was with Dimitri, my life had become unrecognizable. I attended nursing school during the day, studying pharmacology and patient care while trying to ignore the black SUV that always sat in the parking lot, Victor or one of the other guards waiting to drive me wherever I needed to go. My classmates noticed, whispered about the expensive car, the designer clothes that had gradually filled my closet, the confident way I carried myself now that I wasn't drowning in debt and exhaustion. At night, I belonged to Dimitri. We still hadn't slept together. The restraint was driving both of us mad. I could see it in the way his hands trembled slightly when he touched my face, the way his breathing changed when I sat close to him. But he held back, and I understood why. Once we crossed that line, there would be no going back. I would be his completely. Part of me already was. "Your mother is responding well to treatment," Dimitri told me one evening in his apartment above Alina's. We'd fallen into a routine, dinner together, then hours talking on his couch, my body tucked against his side like it had always belonged there. "The doctors are optimistic, because of you." I traced patterns on his chest, feeling his heart beat steady and strong beneath my palm. "She might actually survive this. Because you decided to help a stranger. You were never a stranger, Emma." His fingers threaded through my hair, gentle. "From the first moment I saw you, you were inevitable." I tilted my head to look at him. "What does that mean?" "It means I looked at you, and I knew. That you would change everything, that I would not survive losing you." His jaw tightened. "I have built an empire on careful calculation. I do not take unnecessary risks. And yet you are the most dangerous thing I have ever allowed near me. I'm not dangerous. You are. His hand cupped my face, thumb stroking my cheek. You make me want to be someone I am not, someone worthy of the way you look at me. I see exactly who you are, Dimitri. The violence, the control, all of it. And I'm still here. Something blazed in his eyes. He leaned down, kissing me with an intensity that stole my breath. His hand slid down my back, pulling me closer, and I felt the restraint fraying between us. Then his phone rang. Dimitri pulled back with a Russian curse, his breathing harsh. He glanced at the screen and his expression hardened. I need to take this. He stood, walking to the window as he answered in rapid Russian. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the tone, anger, barely controlled. Something was wrong. When he ended the call, his face was a mask I'd learned to recognize. Someone had made a mistake. Someone would pay for it. What happened? Business. He turned to me, and for a moment I saw past the control to the fury beneath. I need to handle something. Victor will take you home. Dimitri. Now, Emma. His voice was steel. This is not your world. Not tonight. I wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped me. This was the part of his life he kept separate, the darkness he tried to shield me from. I gathered my things, and Victor appeared as if summoned, his face grim. In the SUV, I asked, is he in danger? Victor's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. Boss is never in danger. Other people are in danger from him. That should have been reassuring. It wasn't. I spent the night pacing my apartment, my phone clutched in my hand. Dimitri didn't call, didn't text. The silence felt ominous, like the pause before thunder. At 3 a.m, my door buzzed. I ran to the intercom. Yes? It's me. Dimitri's voice, rough and tired. Let me in. I buzzed him up, my heart racing. When I opened the door, he stood there in the hallway, still in his suit but disheveled, jacket gone, shirt partially unbuttoned, blood on his collar. Not a lot, but enough. Are you hurt? I pulled him inside, my hands already reaching for him. No, not my blood. He caught my hands, holding them still. Emma, I should not be here. I should go home, clean up, come to you tomorrow when I am presentable. But you came here instead. Yes. His voice was raw. Because after the things I did tonight, you are the only thing that makes me feel human. I didn't ask what he'd done, didn't want to know the details. Instead, I led him to my tiny bathroom and started unbuttoning his shirt. He let me, his eyes tracking my every movement. The shirt came off, revealing the body I'd only felt through fabric. Scarred, muscled, marked by a life of violence. I cleaned the blood from his skin with a warm washcloth, my touch gentle on old wounds and new bruises. Emma. My name was a warning. If you continue touching me like that, then what? I looked up at him, seeing the barely leashed hunger in his eyes. What will you do, Dimitri? I will stop being a gentleman. I will take what I have wanted since the moment I saw you, and I will not let you go after. My heart hammered. Maybe I don't want you to be a gentleman anymore. Something snapped in his control. He grabbed me, lifting me onto the bathroom counter, his mouth crashing into mine with desperate hunger. His hand slid under my shirt, hot on my skin, and I wrapped my legs around his waist, pulling him closer. Are you certain? He growled against my lips. Once we do this, you are mine, completely. Irrevocably. No going back. I'm already yours, I whispered. I have been since you first looked at me. We barely made it to my bed. I woke to sunlight streaming through my window and the warmth of Dimitri's body beside me. He was still asleep, his face relaxed in a way I'd never seen. Looking younger, almost peaceful. The sheets tangled around his waist, revealing the map of scars across his chest and back. I traced one long scar along his ribs, wondering what violence had left that mark. His eyes opened, instantly alert, then softened when they found me. Good morning. Hi. I felt suddenly shy, which was ridiculous after last night. Dimitri's hand cupped my face, his thumb stroking my cheek. Do you have regrets? No. Do you? Never. He pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me like I was something precious. You are mine now, Emma, in every way that matters. Possessive much? With you? Always. His lips brushed my forehead. I told you what I am. I do not share. I do not let go. You belong to me now. Instead, the words should have frightened me. They sent warmth flooding through my chest. And do you belong to me? I have since the beginning, even when I was fighting it. His grip tightened. You have ruined me for anyone else. There is only you. We spent the morning in bed, talking and touching, learning each other in daylight. Dimitri told me more about his past, the years of crawling out of poverty, the first man he'd killed in self-defense at 16, the empire he'd built from nothing but will and violence. I am not a good man, he said again, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. But with you, I want to be. You make me want to be better than I am. You saved my mother's life. You protected me when no one else would. That's not nothing, Dimitri. It is also not enough to erase everything else. His eyes were distant. The things I have done, Emma, the people I have hurt. If you knew, then tell me. I sat up, looking at him. Stop trying to protect me from who you are. I'm here. I chose this. Tell me the truth. So he did. He told me about the businesses, some legitimate, most not. The money laundering, the protection rackets, the gambling operations that stretched across 3 states. He told me about rivals he'd eliminated, witnesses who'd disappeared, the careful balance of violence and restraint that kept his empire intact. I have blood on my hands that will never wash clean, he finished. And I will have more before this is done. There are people who want what I have, who will try to take it. And I will stop them, whatever it takes. I should have been horrified, should have gotten dressed and walked away from this man who spoke about murder like it was business. Instead, I kissed him. Thank you for telling me the truth. You are not afraid. I'm terrified, I admitted. But not of you, of losing you, of this world you live in taking you away from me. That will not happen. His voice was iron certainty. I have survived worse than anything my enemies can do. And now, I have a reason to be even more careful. What reason? You. He pulled me back down beside him. Everything I have built, everything I am. It means nothing if I am not here to protect you. So I will be careful. I will be smart. And I will eliminate any threat before it reaches you. My phone rang, shattering the moment. I grabbed it from the nightstand, my mother's number. Mom. Mija. Her voice was bright, stronger than I'd heard in months. The doctor just left. The scans came back. The tumor is shrinking. Emma, it's working. The treatment is actually working. Tears stung my eyes. Mom, that's amazing. I know. I can't believe it. After everything, I thought I was going to die, Emma. I really did. But now I might actually get to see you graduate nursing school. Maybe even meet someone special. Give me grandchildren. She laughed. The sound pure joy. I'm rambling. I'm just so happy. We talked for another 10 minutes, her excitement infectious. When I finally hung up, I was crying and smiling at the same time. Dimitri wiped my tears with his thumb. Good news? The treatment is working. She's going to be okay. Because of you. I kissed him, pouring everything I felt into it. You gave me my mother back. I would give you the world if you asked for it. He said it simply, like it was fact. Everything I have is yours. I just want you. You have me, completely. We stayed in my apartment all day, ignoring the outside world. Victor called once. Dimitri answered in Russian, said something sharp, then turned off his phone. What did you tell him? That I am not to be disturbed unless someone is dying. And even then, they should consider handling it themselves. I laughed. You can't just ignore your empire for a day. Watch me. He pulled me closer. Today, there is only you. Everything else can wait. But the world doesn't wait. Not for men like Dmitry Volkov. At sunset, someone knocked on my door. Not buzzed up. Knocked directly on my apartment door. Dimitri was instantly alert, his body shifting from relaxed to dangerous in a heartbeat. He pulled on his pants, grabbed something from his jacket, a gun, I realized with a start, and moved to the door. "Who is it?" he called, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Victor, we have a situation." Dimitri opened the door. Victor stood there, his face grim. Another guard behind him. What happened? "Sergei's people. They took Alexei." I watched Dimitri's expression turn to stone. "When?" "2 hours ago. From his apartment. They left a message." Victor handed over a phone, and even from across the room, I could see the video playing, a man tied to a chair, beaten, blood streaming down his face. "They want to meet," Victor continued. "Tonight, Pier 17. They say come alone, or Alexei dies." "It's a trap," Dimitri said flatly. "Of course it's a trap, but if we don't go, we go. But not alone." Dimitri turned to me, his eyes hard. "Emma, you will stay here. Victor will remain with you. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone except me." "Dimitri, wait." He crossed to me, kissing me hard. "I will come back to you. I promise. But I need to handle this. These men took someone under my protection. They need to understand what that means. What if something happens to you? It won't." His certainty was absolute. "I have too much to lose now. I will be careful. I will be smart. And I will come back." He dressed quickly, becoming someone else before my eyes. The dangerous man who ran an empire, who commanded fear and respect. The gun disappeared into a holster at his back. He checked his phone, sent rapid texts. At the door, he turned back one more time. "If anything happens, if anyone comes here who is not me or Victor, you run. Do you understand? There is cash in the top drawer of your dresser. A new identity in an envelope. Victor knows where to take you. You disappear, and you do not look back. Dimitri. Promise me, Emma. I promise." He nodded once, then was gone. Victor locked the door behind him, positioning himself by the window where he could watch the street. I sat on my bed, still warm from Dimitri's body, and tried not to imagine all the ways this could go wrong. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. My phone stayed silent. At 2 a.m, Victor's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then ended the call. "Boss is on his way. It's done." Relief flooded through me. "He's okay?" "He's fine. The others are not. But boss is fine." 20 minutes later, I heard footsteps in the hallway. The door opened, and Dimitri walked in. He was covered in blood. His shirt was ruined, his face splattered with red, but his eyes found mine immediately, and they were clear, focused. "It's done," he said simply. "Sergei and his people will not be a problem anymore." I should have asked questions, should have demanded details. Instead, I just pulled him into the bathroom and started cleaning him up, the same way I had the night before. "Emma." His voice was rough. "You should be horrified. I just killed 4 men, watched them die. And I feel nothing except relief that they can never threaten you. I know what you are," I said, washing blood from his hands. "I've always known. This doesn't change anything. You are either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both." I looked up at him. "But I love you, and that's not changing." The words hung in the air between us. I hadn't meant to say them, hadn't planned it, but they were true. Dimitri went very still. "What did you say?" "I love you." My voice was steady. I don't know when it happened. Maybe that first night, maybe gradually. But it's true. I love you, Dmitri Volkov, all of you. Even the dark parts. He kissed me desperately, his hands shaking as they cupped my face. "I love you," he said against my lips. "God help me. I love you more than I thought possible. You are everything. Do you understand? Everything." We made love again, slower this time, tender despite the violence that still clung to him. And afterward, wrapped in his arms, I finally felt safe. Whatever came next, we would face it together. Spring arrived with a gentleness that felt surreal after the violence of winter. I finished my first semester of nursing school with honors, standing in the hospital corridor after my final exam with a smile I couldn't suppress. The clinical rotations had been brutal, the studying relentless, but I'd done it. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again, not just surviving, but actually building toward something. Dmitri picked me up himself, a rare occurrence. He usually sent Victor, preferring to keep his public appearances minimal. But today, he stood leaning against his black Mercedes, impossibly handsome in dark jeans and a leather jacket, looking more like a movie star than a mob boss. "Congratulations," he said, pulling me into his arms. "I'm proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. You would have. Eventually." His hand cupped my face. I simply removed the obstacles. "The strength was always yours." Mom was waiting when we arrived at her new apartment. Another gift from Dmitri, a bright 2-bedroom in a safe neighborhood with an elevator and a doorman. She looked healthy, her hair growing back in silver curls, her smile reaching her eyes again. "There's my nurse," she said, embracing me. Almost a nurse anyway. We had dinner together, Mom, Dmitri, and me, and it felt startlingly normal. Mom adored Dmitri, charmed by his old-world manners and the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. She didn't know exactly what he did, and I'd never tell her. Let her believe he was just a successful businessman who'd fallen for her daughter. In a way, that was true. After dinner, Dmitri drove me to his penthouse. He'd finally shown me his primary residence, a stunning space overlooking the city with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist decor. It felt more like home than anywhere I'd ever lived. "I have something for you," he said, retrieving a small box from his desk. Inside was a key, not to the penthouse. I already had that. This one was different, older-looking, with an ornate head. "What is this?" "A property. In your name. Upstate near the lake. Somewhere safe. Somewhere quiet." His eyes were serious. "If anything ever happens to me, you go there. Everything you need is already in place. Money, documents, security. You'll be protected." "Dmitri, don't talk like that. I must." He closed my fingers around the key. "My world is dangerous. I have enemies who would hurt you to hurt me. I need to know you have a way out, that you'll survive, even if I don't. Nothing is going to happen to you. Promise me anyway. Promise me that if something happens, you'll go. You'll live. You'll finish nursing school and help people and be everything you're meant to be." The intensity in his voice frightened me. "What aren't you telling me?" He was quiet for a long moment, standing at the window looking out over the city he controlled. "There's a war coming. I've managed to avoid it for months. But it's inevitable now. The Italians want my territory. The Russians back home want me to return what they say I stole, and the FBI has a new task force specifically targeting me." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means the next few months will be dangerous. I will do everything in my power to protect you. But you need to understand, being with me puts you at risk. You still have time to walk away, Emma." "I would understand. I would even help you disappear, start fresh somewhere safe." I crossed to him, wrapping my arms around him from behind. "I'm not going anywhere. We face this together." He turned, his hands framing my face. "You are so brave, too brave. It terrifies me." "Then we're even. You terrify me too sometimes." I smiled. "But I love you anyway. I love you." He kissed me softly. "More than my empire. More than my life. Remember that. Whatever happens." The war Dmitri predicted came faster than expected. 3 days later, Victor woke me at dawn. I'd been staying at the penthouse most nights now, with news that 2 of Dmitri's warehouses had been hit, burned to the ground. A message. Dmitri mobilized immediately, his organization shifting into something efficient and terrifying. Men appeared from everywhere, armed and ready. Phone calls in Russian and English and Italian, meetings in the penthouse at all hours. And through it all, Dmitri remained calm, controlled. A general marshalling his forces. He tried to keep me separate from it, but that was impossible. I saw the stress in the tightness around his eyes, the way his jaw clenched when another report came in. I heard the conversations he couldn't hide. Talk of retaliation, of sending messages, of eliminating problems permanently. 2 weeks into the conflict, someone tried to kidnap me. I was leaving class, walking to where Victor waited in the SUV, when a van pulled up. Men in masks poured out, moving toward me with clear intent. Victor reacted instantly, his gun appearing as he positioned himself between them and me. "Run!" he shouted. "Now!" I ran. Behind me, I heard gunshots, screams, the squeal of tires. I made it into the building, security guards appearing, everything chaos. By the time campus police arrived, the van was gone and Victor was bleeding from a shoulder wound. "I'm fine," he insisted as EMTs tried to treat him. "Where's the girl? Is she safe? I'm here." I knelt beside him. "You saved my life. Boss would kill me if anything happened to you. Speaking of which..." He grabbed his phone with his good hand. "He's going to lose his mind." He was right. Dimitri arrived within minutes, his face a mask of controlled fury. He checked me over with hands that trembled slightly, then held me so tight I could barely breathe. "You're leaving," he said, "tonight. I'm sending you to the house upstate with a full security detail. You don't come back until this is over." "No. Emma, this is not negotiable." I said no. I pulled back to look at him. "They tried to take me to get to you. If I disappear, you'll be distracted, vulnerable. I stay here, where you can protect me, where we protect each other. You don't understand what you're asking." "I understand perfectly. I'm asking to stand with you, to not abandon you when things get difficult. Isn't that what you do when you love someone?" Something broke in his expression. He kissed me desperately, right there in front of the EMTs and campus police and everyone. "You will stay at the penthouse," he finally said. "You will not leave without a full security team, and you will do exactly what Victor or I tell you. Agreed?" Agreed. The war escalated. More businesses hit. More violence. The news started running stories about organized crime activity, though they carefully avoided naming names. The FBI presence increased. I spotted agents watching the penthouse, following Dimitri's cars, and through it all, Dimitri fought to protect his empire while keeping me safe. One night, 3 weeks into the conflict, he came home covered in blood again. Not his own. Never his own. He'd eliminated the head of the Italian family trying to take his territory. It was over. The war was won, but the cost was visible in his eyes. "How many?" I asked as I helped him out of his ruined clothes. "Enough." His voice was hollow. "Too many." I held him that night while he slept fitfully, his body tense even in rest. This was the reality of loving Dmitri Volkov. The violence, the nightmares, the blood that never quite washed clean. But it was also the fierce protection, the unwavering loyalty, the love that consumed everything. 2 months later, the FBI task force was quietly disbanded. I never knew what Dimitri did to make that happen. Bribes, blackmail, threats. And I didn't ask. Some things were better left unknown. Summer arrived with heat and humidity that made the city shimmer. I finished another semester of nursing school, now halfway to my degree. Mom's cancer remained in remission. And Dimitri's empire had expanded, stronger than before, his position unassailable. We were having dinner at Alina's, our place where it had all begun, when Dimitri reached across the table and took my hand. "I have something to ask you," he said. My heart stuttered. "Okay." "This life I live, it will never be completely safe. There will always be threats, always be dangers. I cannot promise you peace or normalcy. But I can promise you this: I will love you until my last breath. I will protect you with everything I have. And I will spend every day trying to be worthy of the way you look at me." He pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a ring, a single diamond, simple and perfect, surrounded by smaller stones that caught the candlelight. "Marry me, Emma. Be my wife. Let me give you my name, my protection, everything I am. I know I'm asking you to accept a dangerous life, but yes." I didn't let him finish. "Yes, I'll marry you." The smile that broke across his face transformed him, making him look younger, happier, almost innocent. He slid the ring onto my finger, perfect fit, of course, and kissed me across the table while the restaurant staff pretended not to watch. "You have made me the happiest man alive," he murmured against my lips. Good, because you've made me the happiest woman. We were married 3 months later in a small private ceremony. Mom was there, healthy and radiant. Victor stood as Dimitri's best man, his shoulder healed, his loyalty unshakable. A handful of Dimitri's most trusted people attended, along with a few of my nursing school friends who thought they were attending the wedding of a successful businessman and his nurse fiancée. Let them think that. The truth was more complicated, darker, more beautiful than they could imagine. Dimitri had asked a priest he trusted to perform the ceremony, Russian Orthodox, all incense and ancient prayers. When we exchanged vows, his voice was steady, certain. I take you, Emma Rodriguez, to be my wife. I promise to protect you, to cherish you, to love you, until death takes me. You are mine, and I am yours, for all the days I have left. I take you, Dmitri Volkov, to be my husband, I replied, my voice strong despite the tears streaming down my face. I promise to stand with you, to love you, to accept all that you are. You are mine, and I am yours, forever. The ring he slid onto my finger matched the engagement ring, his mark, his claim, his promise. When the priest pronounced us married, Dmitri kissed me like I was the air he needed to breathe. The reception was held at the penthouse, intimate and perfect. We danced to Russian love songs I didn't understand, but felt in my bones. We ate food that tasted like celebration. And when it was finally over, when everyone had left and we stood alone in our home overlooking the city, Dmitri pulled me close. Mrs. Volkov, he said, testing the name. How does it feel? Right. I smiled up at him. It feels absolutely right. He carried me to our bedroom now, not just his, and made love to me with a tenderness that contradicted everything he was. And afterward, wrapped in his arms, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From that night at the Belvedere Club, where I'd been invisible and exhausted and lost, to this moment where I was loved, protected, cherished. It hadn't been an easy path. It had been dangerous, violent, complicated, but it had been ours. What are you thinking? Dmitri asked, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. That I would do it all again, every moment, every danger, every fear, because it led me to you. You are extraordinary, Emma Volkov. His lips brushed my temple, and I will spend the rest of my life proving myself worthy of you. You already have. 6 months later, I graduated from nursing school. Dmitri sat in the audience, pride evident in every line of his face. Mom was beside him, healthy and beaming, and when they called my name, I walked across that stage knowing I'd earned it. Not just the degree, but the life I'd built. I started working at the hospital where Mom had been treated, specializing in oncology. It felt right, helping people the way Dimitri's money had helped my mother, giving back, making a difference. Dmitri scaled back some of his more dangerous operations, focusing on legitimate businesses. He was never going to be fully clean. That wasn't possible with his past. But he was trying. For me. For the future we were building together. 2 years after we married, I found out I was pregnant. I told Dmitri on a quiet Sunday morning, just the two of us in the penthouse. He'd been reading the newspaper, his reading glasses perched on his nose. A rare domestic moment. I set the positive pregnancy test on the table beside his coffee. He stared at it for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes for the first time since I'd known him. A baby, he whispered. We're having a baby. Are you happy? He pulled me into his lap, holding me like I might disappear. Happy doesn't begin to describe it. Terrified, overwhelmed, grateful, his voice broke. Emma, I never thought I would have this. A wife, a child, a real family. I thought men like me didn't deserve such things. You deserve everything, I said firmly. And this baby is going to be so loved. He will be protected, Dmitri said, his hand settling over my still flat stomach. Or she, no one will ever hurt our child. I will make certain of it. I know you will. Our daughter was born on a snowy December morning, small and perfect, with dark hair like her father, and eyes that would eventually turn the same warm brown as mine. Dmitri held her with shaking hands. This man who'd killed without hesitation, who'd built an empire on violence and fear, reduced to tears by 8 pounds of pure innocence. "Katerina," he said softly, "after my mother. Is that all right? It's perfect." Watching him with our daughter over the months that followed showed me yet another side of Dmitry Volkov. He was gentle, patient, devoted. He sang to her in Russian, songs from his childhood. He walked the floors with her at night when she couldn't sleep, and he looked at her with such fierce love that I understood completely. He would burn the world down to keep her safe. Our life wasn't normal. Dmitry's business still required his attention, still carried dangers, but it was ours. We had our home, our daughter, our love. We had family dinners with Mom, who adored her granddaughter. We had quiet moments stolen between the chaos, just the 3 of us, perfect and whole. One evening, when Katerina was 6 months old, I found Dmitry standing by her crib, watching her sleep. I wrapped my arms around him from behind. "What are you thinking?" "That I was dead before I met you," he said quietly. "Going through the motions, surviving, but not really living. And now?" He turned to face me, his hand cupping my cheek. "Now I have everything. A wife who sees all of me and loves me anyway. A daughter who will never know hunger or fear. A reason to be better than I was. You are better. You always have been. Because of you." He kissed me softly. "Thank you, Emma, for seeing me, for choosing me, for giving me this life I never thought I deserved. We chose each other," I corrected. "That's how love works." Standing there in the nursery, our daughter sleeping peacefully, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows, I thought about how far we'd come. From that moment in the Belvedere Club when Tyler's cruelty had inadvertently brought Dmitry into my life, to this perfect moment of peace and family. It hadn't been easy. It had been dangerous, terrifying, complicated, but it had also been beautiful, passionate, real. Dmitry Volkov had saved me from drowning. And in return, I'd given him something to live for beyond power and control. We'd saved each other. And that, I thought as Dmitry pulled me close, was the truest kind of love, the kind that survived darkness and emerged stronger, the kind that built families and futures from ashes and violence, the kind that lasted forever.